for Newtown.
Thank you, Speaker. It is my absolute pleasure to rise on behalf of the Greens to speak in debate on the Residential Tenancies Amendment Bill 2024 and say at the outset that the Greens enthusiastically support the comprehensive end to no grounds evictions in New South Wales contained in this bill. This bill seeks to outlaw unfair no grounds evictions in New South Wales and require all residential landlords to provide a reason, supported with evidence, when evicting someone. The pathway to delivering on this reform started over a decade ago and was built by tenants' advocates, housing experts, grassroots groups, activists, legal centres, unions, renters, and indeed the Greens. More than 28,000 renters in New South Wales are booted from their homes each year without a reason. For many renters, fear of a no grounds evictions is enough to prevent them from requesting a basic maintenance or repair request, forcing them to live in mould-ridden homes or in properties that fail to meet their accessibility requirements. This bill is a chance to make a massive step toward ensuring that renters in New South Wales have not only the security and stability, but also the dignity and safety that they deserve. In addition to ending no grounds evictions, this bill also requires landlords to offer tenants a free and convenient way to pay rent, limits the frequency of rent increases for all lease types to no more than one every 12 months, appoints the New South Wales Rental Commissioner to the Rental Bond Board, and clarifies that limits apply to the amounts a prospective tenant can be required to pay before a residential tenancy agreement. The Greens support all of these changes. This bill also establishes an application process for renters who wish to keep a pet, which I will address in greater detail shortly. Before I turn, though, to the details of the bill, I wish to foreshadow that the Greens will be moving a number of amendments to close some potential loopholes pertaining to specific grounds for eviction, mitigate against the loss of rental homes to the short-term rental market, strengthen provisions around pets to ensure tenants do not bear the administrative burden of these changes, and require data collection and a statutory review of the Act in 5 years, and I'll speak to all of those when we get to the point of considering amendments. The most significant reform in this bill is the removal of unfair no grounds eviction provisions and replacement of these with specific grounds on which a termination can be issued. To do this, this bill removes sections 84 and 85. These two sections prevent renters in New South Wales from exercising their rights under the entire Act. They stop them fighting for rent increases, compel them to pay for maintenance when it should be the landlord who coughs up, and prevents them from requesting critical repairs, all for fear that they will be kicked out. As Dr. Chris Martin from the University of New South Wales City Futures Centre told the Select Committee inquiry into the Greens bill to end no grounds evictions, no grounds reform is the single most important tenancy law reform that the New South Wales Parliament could make today. It goes to the single most unsatisfactory aspect of the current experience of renting, its insecurity. It is also the reform on which other improvements in the renting experience depend. The new subdivision 1 in this bill sets out an exhaustive list of reasons, in addition to the non-payment of rent, serious damage by the tenant or occupant, or use of the rental premises for illegal purposes which are already in the Act, for which a landlord may evict a tenant. These are a breach of a tenancy agreement, actual or proposed sale of premises, demolition of or significant renovations or repairs to premises, a tenant no longer being eligible for a specific housing scheme such as affordable housing, and the landlord or their family residing in the premises. We are particularly pleased to see the new Section 84 makes clear that specific grounds are needed to terminate both tenancy types, fixed and periodic. Since both major parties signalled that they were considering ending no grounds evictions following the review of the Act and legislative changes in 2017, the Liberals under Victor Dominello and then Matt Keane, and Labor under Luke Foley, if you remember him, Speaker, there has been much back and forth during this time about the necessary extent of the reform. The Greens, and to their credit, Labor, in a private member's bill moved by the then Shadow Minister Julia Finn, and the announcement made leading up to the March 23 election, always maintained that the practice must be banned for both fixed and periodic tenancies. The Coalition, meanwhile, has argued that landlords should be able to evict a person without reason at the end of a fixed-term agreement. In Victoria, reforms allowing no grounds evictions at the end of the first fixed-term agreement have only incentivised increased rental churn, with landlords moving tenants onto shorter fixed-term agreements to preserve the right to arbitrarily evict. The inquiry that I had the privilege of chairing earlier this year into the Greens' private members' bill to comprehensively end no grounds evictions also overwhelmingly heard that reforms must apply to both fixed and periodic tenancies, with Shelter New South Wales highlighting that more than 70% of no grounds evictions in New South Wales are issued at the end of a fixed-term lease, and warning that both the Queensland and Victorian models leave renters open to bad faith evictions. It is wonderful that the comprehensive ban is reflected in this bill. I wish to acknowledge both Minister Chantavong and his team and the Premier and his team for the willingness to listen to the experts, advocates and the millions of renters in this state on the need for this to be a comprehensive reform. There are two specific grounds on which termination notices can be issued in the new subdivision 1 of the bill that the Greens do express concerns about. And as foreshadowed, we'll be moving amendments to address these. First, we do not believe that proposed sale of premises should be included as a list of specific grounds. I will speak in more detail about the concerns that housing experts and advocates have raised about this when we move to the consideration in detail. We are also concerned that Section 87F, the specific ground relating to renovations and repairs, leaves the door open for discretion in determining what repairs are considered significant enough for the landlord to use this ground for eviction. We understand that this detail will come in regulations, but are seeking clarity from the Minister about the kinds of parameters that may be used as to whether something is significant, as we have reservations about the idea of passing this legislation without having seen the details. Similarly, in his reply, we are seeking assurances from the Minister that this section will not allow tenants who have requested significant repairs, for example, replacement of mouldy roofs, cannot be evicted on this ground if a rectification order is not already in effect. And it is essential that New South Wales Labor government provides assurances that any tenant who would be evicted under the proposed sections pertaining to eligibility for transitional housing, affordable housing, or student housing cannot be evicted into homelessness. I now turn to Clause 9 of this bill, Speaker, which pertains to pets. The Greens believe that when it comes to pets, renters should have the same rights as a landlord. If a landlord who moved into their investment property would be able to have a pet, then a renter in the same property should also be able to do so. Our rental system should be animal inclusive by default, not least because we know that this is an area of policy that significantly overlaps with elements that relate to eliminating domestic and family violence risks. As the Minister in his second reading speech said, pets form part of the modern family, and according to DV New South Wales, 93% of domestic and family violence workers said that the lack of animal-inclusive rental housing is a barrier to support for people with animals experiencing violence. While the proposed Division 8 creates a process for people who are already in a rental property to request the landlord's permission to keep a pet, it does nothing for people who already have a pet and are seeking to move into a new rental property. Section 73D, E and F require a landlord to provide a written response to an application by a tenant to have a pet within 21 days of receipt, prescribes the only grounds on which the landlord can refuse to give consent, and outlines conditions that a landlord may be able to impose on consent for a tenant to keep a pet. Let's be clear, unlike the no grounds evictions reforms in this bill, the pets provisions in this bill are far from a game changer, required to see that lives are saved and that pets are included as part of renters' families. I now turn briefly, Speaker, to Section 41 of the bill, which closes a loophole allowing rent to be increased more than once, not allowing rent to be increased more than once in a 12-month period for a fixed-term lease that is shorter than 2 years. The Greens welcome this light form of rent control and encourage Labor to keep heading in that direction and recognise that unlimited rent increases are sadly an unjust reality. But it doesn't go far enough. This provision would protect tenants who are already in a property from unlimited rent increases, but it doesn't prevent rents for a single property going up multiple times in a 12-month period. Speaker, if I can request an extension of time.
The member for Newtown requests the time be expended. All of that opinion say aye. To the contrary, no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it.
Thank you. For example, if multiple tenants occupy the same property in successive 3 or 6 month leases. While we don't intend to move amendments for rent freezes and rent caps during this debate, I do wish to put on the record that the only thing stopping unlimited rent increases being imposed on the 2 million renters in New South Wales is indeed the New South Wales Labor government. I give my commitment that once these reforms are done, the Greens will be looking at ways to ensure that no one is forced to live in housing stress by paying more than 30% of their income on rent, and that no one is evicted into homelessness. Ending No Grounds Evictions took us a decade. Maybe we can get rent controls done in half that time, Speaker. I end by acknowledging and thanking the tireless efforts and the truly visionary policy work of many who have been part of delivering on this reform. I remember sitting in the Newtown campaign meeting in 2014 as the newly pre-selected candidate for Newtown as we discussed the possibility of taking up the fight for renters' rights directly to the greedy real estate agents, dodgy landlords and big property investors. Around that table a decade ago, shaping this initiative, which would become a priority for myself and indeed the Newtown electorate office for the entire decade, sat some very wise heads, friends and political allies, including the then Marrickville councillor and now City of Sydney councillor Sylvie Ellsmore, Emma Bacon, May Aziz, Ben Spees-Butcher, Mark Riboldi, Rafi Alam, Rob Shield and the newly elected Newcastle councillor Joel Pringle. There were hundreds of other key people involved in that first Newtown Greens campaign and I express gratitude to them all. Many thanks also to the past and present renters who have been a part of this decade-long campaign in the Newtown electorate office. Dan, Kathy, Lydia, Mithra, Caitlin, Asha, Chandy, Anna, and our current team of Luke, Danny, Donnie, Eleanor, and Patricia, who I believe is still ticking over amendments in her head as she sits in the chamber. But this policy priority didn't emerge from a vacuum or just as a result of what happened with Newtown and the Greens. It was connected with the very real struggles faced by communities grappling with the sell-off of public housing, the insecurity of the private rental market, and the failures of successive governments to address the housing crisis. It also added to the growing movement for change in communities and organisations and activist circles that we were all a part of, coming together under the collective Make Renting Fair campaign. I wish to make special mention of those at the New South Wales Tenants Union who we have worked with over the years, the former Tenants Union Policy Advisor, Ned, who is now a valued part of the Balmain Greens team, and the current team, Leo, Jemima and Zuzia. A special shout out also and thanks to the teams at NCOS, Everybody's Home and the community legal centres across the state, particularly the tenants' advice and advocacy officers who are at the front line of supporting our community members when they face the realities of the eviction crisis. If we succeed in ending unfair no grounds evictions with the passage of this bill, it will be a testament to the power of effective, collective community campaigning, as well as the tenacity and willingness of some of us in the Greens to not stop talking about no grounds evictions. 1 foot in Parliament and 1,000 on the streets is how we see this change being delivered. And we must acknowledge that it is a New South Wales Labor government committed to working with this Parliament to take this reform. And I'm sorry to say that we could have got it done all those years ago had the Liberals in their discussions listened to the ministers that were responsible at that time for seeing where this debate would get to. So often it is said that the Greens push too hard, that we expect too much, that we are a protest party, as if this is an insult. The Greens are a party that puts things on the agenda before they are acceptable or popular to do so, before they are safe to support, and before the majority are on board. This is our role in progressive social change and a role that I am honoured to continue to play in this place and outside. The No Grounds Evictions ban in this bill will make a massive material difference in the lives of over 2 million renters in New South Wales and the many, many millions of renters to come in the future. The Greens are so pleased that we are here in this chamber finally debating this critical reform. I absolutely commend the bill to the House.
The question is the bill be read a second time. I call the member for South Coast.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm pleased to rise and make a short contribution to the Residential